Welcome to a live stream Q&A that is completely unprompted. I don't know who's all showing up for this, but hey, why not? I'm here and some of you might be here too. I was just playing in the lab this morning because I have a few things I'm completing, and I was like, I could do this on a live stream, and maybe I should do this more often whenever I'm just setting things up in the lab. I actually spent a few hours in my other lab, not the one at my studio. We got 3 labs now, and it's like, should I just live stream from some of these? I don't mind the Q&A. And sometimes I'm talking to, if I'm especially at the Toledo office where we have the most employees, there's a lot more talking going on because people are asking questions and things like that. But, I thought I'd show some behind the scenes. I haven't figured out how to turn this fully into a narrative in terms of like what I'm doing all the time. That's been a little bit tricky, and it seems I try to put things that are more concise, but I figured live streams are always less concise, so it's more fun to talk about like the things Tom has going on behind the scenes and all the lab stuff that's going on. And what's you know what, I'm just going to move right to our social media calendar, because that's where I think 100%, let me verify this before I share it out. I think 100% of everything in here is completely shareable. And it is perfect. Awesome. Everything but the audio. Actually, I can't play it now because you guys hear it. I won't play any of the videos because there may be some audio issues there. I just don't know what we were talking about in the background. I got to make sure that's filtered. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff we're working on, including we just got these in, I think Thursday. So I got to do some videos on them. These are the new big twin super micro servers. Let me see if I have the info on these. So I have the model. Yeah, super micro 217B. Let me pull it up. It's just easier for people that are curious what these are. Is it here? No. No, close enough. Funny that it lands on a PDF when you put that model in there. We have a big project we're doing. We have a bunch of these. I don't remember exactly how many yet. Like, I could look it up, but these are the ones we have are 4 servers. This is a 2 model, but we have the ones that are 4 servers in 1. That's what you're seeing in this photo. And, this is some of the fun stuff that I'm working on some videos for, is just all the things we got going on. It's trying to figure out how to turn into, what part is interesting. A lot of people seem to have a hard time understanding this one. Is like, these are 4 Netgate 8300s. And people kept asking, like, why? And I'm like, what do you mean why? It's 2 HA pairs. And they're like, no way, that's overkill. And I'm like, not for the data center usage that this is going into. This is one of those, projects that's part of a really big project that I'm trying to work on the video for, because it's not complete. So it's kind of disjointed right now until it's all there. But yeah, it's going to be kind of neat as I pull all this together of putting it there. Not to mention, we have these Arista and FS.com switches. You're also seeing the secrets for how Tom labels things. I do this, and that's how we remember later what the thing is that I took a picture of, so Matt can do the socials. Yeah, it's funny, the little details you got to put in there. But yeah, this is also the new lab server. It seems wild. People will think it is pretty wild for a lab server, but it's really not. For the size and scale of the projects we do, we need to build things out in a way that is, pretty, like to do our proof of concepts of things. There's sometimes you need, and I'll share the screen over here. This is what I'm working on. So if you go to the host, this is that Dell R740 server. So there's the picture of it here, and there's the result of it. So it's got 256 gigs of RAM. It's got 12 1 terabyte NVMe drives in it. So it's definitely a really beefy system for getting things done. I'll be doing a series of tests on it and playing around with it, and just kind of showing it off of just how fast it is. and I'll do a review of it as well. It's eventually just going to be what our team does some project work on, because one of the things we have a lot of is um, lots of VMs that are, Kyle or Miles and different employees. These are all their testing servers that they have. I'm working on probably a video on Chasm. I'm definitely working on an updated or a new videos. I never did the original one I was going to do because I knew they were changing it. Fabric has been rewritten, so I will do one on Fabric. It's a tool for doing AI interactions. So it's all, it's handy to have a lab like this so I can get all these things done. And I also run a mix of things because I have this little Ace Magic. So this is obviously not the most beefy lab server. I'm looking around because there's another little B-Link that I have. So I got the Ace Magic one. I got a B-Link. I've been doing some mini PCs, and I'll be doing some comparisons. I think people are going to be interested in understanding like why or when you might want to think about buying a mini PC or one of the servers, because we buy a lot of those larger servers, and we sometimes, well, I would say sometimes, quite a few times, to meet budget demands, we'll buy them used. And the reason why we're buying them used from Tech Supply Direct. I think I have a photo that we shared already. I like that. I like that. I see these little things from Matt in the background. It's server added videos to StreamYard. Power supply, no audio. All right. I forget where you do that. Is it under brand? Where do I play the video? Oh, there it is. Matt's playing it. There we go. Yeah. Sorry for the bad camera work. I was pointing the camera in the wrong direction a couple times. Because we were trying to pull it out and then I'm holding the camera. There we go. That's the power supplies in these. There's two of them. The power supplies are huge. They're just monstrous in that thing. And it's kind of novel to see them. There we go. That's how there's 4 of these servers, and it's a 2U, 4 server, 2 power supply system. So yeah, that's what that looks like. It's pretty cool. So I'll be doing a whole video on that. Now, the tricky part about doing the video is we don't have a 220 in our lab yet. We're building a new lab that probably will have 220, but there's not 220 in the lab that this is in. So we got to move it over to a rack downstairs that does have 220. So I'll get to film it down there. Our basement has 220 hookups. That's some of the challenges when you get with these big servers. Is as cool as they are, once you go into the 220, well, you start limiting where you can hook them up. So it's kind of one of those little things that you gotta deal with on there. Yeah, the mini PCs are great. I think for a lot of people, the mini PCs are probably going to be a really popular choice. They're cost effective. They're quiet. They have enough power to probably do what you need to do. And not everybody needs, I completely get this. I mean, everybody wants, but not everybody needs a 80 core, 256 gigs of RAM. And by the way, this has got a Xeon Gold processor in it. I mean, this is super fancy and certainly has some power consumption that goes with it too. So it's like a balancing act. And for our commercial clients, these are ideal. I think one of the projects has 8 of these that we're putting together for the client. I got to count all the boxes. There's a lot of boxes. And I just don't have the project information pulled up right now. But yeah, there's quite a bit that goes into these for them. Plus, I need to do an updated video on XCP&G because hardware pass-through is a thing now. So I can be like, hey, let's show you how to do hardware pass-through or how to pass through this, because I want to do I'll do a video on how you can build this out, like pass these through to a VM and run virtualized TrueNAS, because people always ask me about it. So I can show like a process by which you can do this. It's still not my preferred method, but people who want to experiment with things, there is a method by which you can pass these through and get all that set up. Yeah, that's some of the staff that works there. So there's, I think we have about 20 technicians at CNWR. There's roughly 30 people that, I always say about 30 because it's give or take, that are direct full-time employees of CNWR. There's more people that may be contractors or people we use, but what we refer to as, FTE full-time employees. We have about 30 people working at CNWR. Roughly 20 of them are techs. Let's see. New to Home Lab, looking for a mini PC that will suffice. I'd like to run Plex, VMs, Docker files. Any recommendations? Yeah, actually, the mini PCs, I really, so I got more of these. Let me grab one real quick. This, I haven't reviewed this one yet. This is one of the next ones I'm going to review. And if I feel inspired, I'll do this tonight, depending on how nice it is outside. These little B-Links, I think B-Link's doing a great job on these. So I've tested some of the Ace Magic, and there was all the controversy that actually one of my friends pointed out with Ace Magic and them shipping shady software. Whatever. I mean, I reload. I don't care who I get these from. They get reloaded immediately. So I never recommend running the software that is on there. Yep. And right here, we got a B-Link video you can watch as well. So the B-Link SCR8. This one is the one that I haven't reviewed yet. This is I don't know the model on this one yet, but it's another B-Link that I'll be reviewing. I think the B-Link's just like a little bit notched up in terms of quality compared to the Ace Magics, but there's a couple oddball ones I've reviewed as well that they seem to work fine. I haven't had any problems with them. What is that one called? I can't remember the name of it. They have one of them has a really weird name. Those only one, if it seems too odd and you can only find like a one-off of it, maybe hesitate on that one because you might not get as good a customer service. But I think B-Link is a pretty good one. Wendell from Level 1 Techs just talked about that Asus is taking over the NUC manufacturing for Intel. So the Asus ones are actually really nice as well. Asus got a few different mini PCs. Yeah, mini forums too. I have not bought any of the mini forums ones, but my friends, like several of my YouTube friends have, and they, you can watch the reviews. Wendell's talked about them. Jeff from Craft Computing's talked about them. So definitely check out the reviews. Those are two YouTubers you can absolutely trust. Here's a little thing I'll bring up as well. I've been doing this to help people because there's so much garbage out there. And what I like to do is, and I'll share this on screen right here. The reason I make this page, if you go to lawrencesystems.com, creators we love, I listed some of the podcasts. People say, hey, what are some of the tech podcasts you like? So that's listed here. I didn't want to grab thumbnails because they changed too much and I didn't feel like dragging everybody's logo. But these YouTube channels here, these are all good people to follow that will give you good information. I put them all on here because of them having very reputable YouTube channels. And even 45 Drives is still a YouTube channel, even though they're technically also a business. And they have some really good tutorials on things. So they're the only well, technically I'm a business as well. I'm not just a YouTuber. As I was just talking about CNWR, it is a company and we do IT services, but nonetheless, these are all people you can trust in terms of for good reviews. Like I said, you can find it on my website under Creators We Love. Have you heard of Island Router and Island Pro Router? Specs look great. The Island Router. Weird. No, it's not open source. It seems like a consumer product, so I will pass on it. I know I see a for business option, but no, I don't have an interest in that. I gave them a bunch of free advertising just now by mentioning your name. Do you have some strict rule for replacing HDDs and RAIDs production systems? One relocated sector for replacing disk, or is there a threshold? Really, honestly, my threshold is if it's a production system and we got drives going bad, I swap them. I don't wait. It's just not worth any downtime. I mean, I'm not going to swap them the moment I see it in a RAID array. Like, oh no, it has a bad sector, but that means that drive is going to get replaced. And I'll even point out one here. So I have, and let me pull it up here in a second. Let me get to the drives. Because I'm going to do a video on this. So none of these have errors. See, I got a couple drives that are giving some errors here. And they're on my to-do list to replace because this is somewhat of production. It's the same drive. It's one drive just keeps. It's got a couple bad 8 offline unrecoverable sectors. It's up to 64. I just started doing this a couple days ago, and there's hot spares and everything, so I'm not at any risk of losing data. This is a RAID Z2. So with RAID Z2, I can suffer the loss of 2 drives on any one of my VDEVs. So this system is quite resilient, and it's not caused any errors with ZFS itself. It's only caused the drive to tell me there's some errors, but that's it. It actually has not, as you can see, there's no problem with the ZFS array itself. It's completely fine. It's healthy, no issues. So when it starts causing a problem to the ZFS pool, then I'm a lot more concerned. Right now, all it's doing is telling me that the disk has a couple errors on it, which is not good, but also not, it doesn't mean I need to replace it immediately. I think you got to look at each drive. So I know it's SDX, but yeah, this is the drive that's got, it's passing, but it does have a couple errors on it. So if you do the short offline test, but when I do a scrub, it throws some errors. I know this drive is on the edge of going bad. So yes, generally speaking, it's not an exact science, but if I know what drive has errors, it is on my, I make a to-do list to replace it. There's a hot spare in here, so it's not something I need to do today. Sweet. I got another, hold on. There's another thing we can throw in here real quick. Let me catch up on the chats and I'll throw some more videos in here. Any luck getting Mellanox 100 gig NICs working XC? Been struggling to get these online at all. I'll have to do some testing. I don't have that particular one, so I don't know the answer to that. Let's see. Any news on when this will be released stable? I don't know. Generally, I'm thinking October because my testing with the 2410 has gone really well. I haven't found, whoops, I did not type that IP address in right. There we go. I have not had any problems with it. So, but I haven't had problems with it. Doesn't mean someone else didn't. So that doesn't mean debugging's done. Tom, it works at Tom's lab isn't necessarily like the answer, you know what I mean? But it's been stable. The apps run well. I don't even know what apps are on this one. I've got a couple of these. Let's run an update while we're here. So let's go ahead and upgrade selected apps. Oh, that's broken. Upgrade. Oh, I was just thinking. There we go. I was just pausing. I haven't had any problems with it, so my hopes are it's going to go pretty stable. They're pulling a lot out, and the fact that they're pulling things out of it makes me think it's going to be easier to code because they're like, what the Kubernetes stuff always was buggy, and that was always a lot of enhancements on the list of like we did a lot of more work on it. Well, now that they're going, all right, we decided we're just going to go straight native Docker here, but use the same templates. Awesome. There's actually less complexity in terms of that. Oh, you followed the specs for the HL8 server. That's a good choice. They have good hardware choices on there. I've been working with USB pass-through and XCP-NG for Home Assistant. I've set some rules in USB policy every time I patch my pool. Any tips on that? I thought you could just do that through the UI. I've not really done much testing. We have 0 businesses using the USB pass-through. It's pretty much a home user thing, but I think if you did it in here, it should remember it, but I don't know that for certain. I feel like it should, but you'll have to do some testing on there, and because it's on my to-do list now that they put it on the UI to do testing on it, but I still haven't really done any testing. Is good enough to run Plex multiple VMs? I don't know the answer to that. Always go faster, and it really depends if you're transcoding. I don't really, I don't do any transcoding with Plex, so it's not something I really run into. I don't even use Plex. I use MB. New XCP&G server, dual epics. Nice. I like the dual epics. Intel 4 port, SFP plus. Awesome. VM's only getting iGig, iPerf. A guess might be that check to make sure you have the latest Zen tools installed. Do an iPerf on the system itself, XCP&G itself, before the VMs to make sure it's not a problem. Someone was just posting in my forums that they were stuck getting low performance. It turns out they had a routing issue after they. I'm happy they admitted this, because this is something that drives me crazy when people say, "Oh, I solved the problem," but they don't tell you how they solved the problem. Do check to make sure it's routing properly. Do the basics. Make sure that the XCP&G machine is actually talking at the proper speed before you figure out if the VMs are. People start with the VMs having a problem, but you got to look at the host OS and try and solve if there's some bug in the host OS that's causing the problem first. So I don't really have a direct answer for it. But all the ones I've worked on, anytime this includes internal staff setting things up, when they tell me it doesn't work right, I've never found it to be the operating system. I've always found it to be something else, a bad cable, a connection flapping, a setting on a VLAN that was routing that they didn't think was routing, a switch problem where they had the switch misconfigured. So start eliminating all the potential things, like do a direct connection between two systems and see if that solves it. Dell SFF machine. What is a Dell SFF? Oh, the small form factor. Yeah. As long as you have a couple network cards, don't use, if you want a horrible pfSense experience, plug a USB adapter in and go, I can't get the networking to work. That is going to be a bad experience for that. So if you want a good experience, get some onboard network cards, get a small network card that works in there, Intel based, please, to have the least amount of problems. Don't have any questions at the moment. Just want to say thanks for all the content tutorials. Awesome. Glad you stopping by to say thanks. I missed the last live stream at XMG. You got a question. I've been running an Release Canada 1, but when I yum update, new install, could it be already running? Yeah, if you already had RC1, it should just update itself to RC2. They don't tell you what RC you're on. For example, if I go to this one here, it does not say the version. So if I look here, it just calls it 8.3. They don't have a separate RC number they put after it. So, but it's up to date. There's no patches to be loaded or anything else. So as far as I know, this is going to be the same. Read through their blog post on there. But yeah, you should be able to yum update. I think the final, though, you're going to want to do a reload over the top. Now, reloading it doesn't destroy anything. It'll do the in-place upgrade if you download the DVD. Why does Ubuntu 24 won't report IP via Zen tools? I don't know. My guess is you don't have the tools loaded. I don't have an answer for that because let's see. Do I have any Ubuntu's in here? Let me look. I have to load an. I don't have a 24 Ubuntu loaded right now. Or do I? Do I have one loaded somewhere else? '24. Nope, I have no Ubuntu 24s loaded, so I can't test that. But it works with all the latest Debian. I post in her forums it's not working. Load their latest tools. My personal NAS has 6 2 TB hard drives that have lots of hours on them. That's 10.5 years. Wow, that is that 92,000 hours. It's crazy how long they last. I've had some hard drives that I pulled out of, they were too small, but they never had an error. Their drives had just been on for years and years and years. There's nothing wrong with them other than I think they were like 1 TB drives. I retired them out of fear they would fail, but it is amazing sometimes how long these last. Yeah, post in their forums. I have no idea the answer to that question right there. What was the other one we threw in here? The Dell chassis. Oh yeah, this one. This is something else working on too. I don't know if I'll do it. This is something else we bought for some clients. Uh, but this is a Dell chassis that has mid-mounted drives in it. And I think I got some photo. Let me pull back over to the photos on that. Yeah, it's a mid-mount chassis. Where did it go? No, for some reason I have a video somewhere of it. I don't know. I may not. It's a chassis with it's a Dell chassis with the drives mounted in the middle. It's kind of cool. I've never done a review of those. I mean, I've done the ones where yeah, I thought I had that one. But what makes it cool is it's got a rear back plane, it's got a middle back plane, and it's got a front back plane for drives, or chassis hookups for drives. And we've got it loaded with drives in the front, middle, and back. So it's kind of cool. And they're full-size drives. And I thought I had a picture. I mean, this is what it looks like. I just don't have an open picture of it. This is the right one. This is at our Toledo office. Oh, it'll be this video. Yeah, this video has the there's the mid-mount chassis. I don't know if I do it open, so it's probably not a big deal on the audio there, but it's pretty neat, and I'll probably do a review of that as well, just to show people what it looks like. Thanks for all your content. I'm looking for a Ryzen 9 XCPG virtualization server on your kit page. What are pros and cons of going with server motherboard versus gaming motherboard? The first comment here really answers that. Not having IPMI is a pain, but it's not. IPMI makes it really nice for setting things up. But how often will you use IPMI? That's where things get a little bit fuzzy. I mean, I'll log into our, where's it at? It's going to be, so the system, there we go. Let me log into it real quick and then I'll pull it up here on the screen. I believe I covered this in a review as well. So this is the AS Rock one I'm going to pull up here. But, this makes a huge difference having this when you're setting it up. So to justify that extra expense, though, how often will you be in here? It is greatly convenient to have lights out management on these systems when you're doing updates, when you're doing setup of the system, but it's not really needed outside of that. I mean, it's cool. You can certainly do some extra monitoring and extra features in here, but this costs, an extra $100+ to get a motherboard that has this versus using a gaming motherboard. Honestly, though, a gaming motherboard will work pretty well. And you can get a lot done with a gaming motherboard with these. So they're, you get better sensor readings. I like being able to, all this is just a web page on there. And of course, the remote control options, which I'll pull up. It has an HTML5 version. So we'll go ahead and share this tab, and then we can, is it making sure it's sharing properly? Yeah. Now I can remotely control this and set it up. I can even mount drives into it and go through a full setup. So it's great when you're dealing with any troubleshooting for sure. So I'd recommend this because it's nice, but it depends on where your budget lands on there more than anything else. We have see the Dell servers, we usually get used ones more than anything else, but the Lenovo, we do those new. We do a lot of new Lenovo servers. Matter of fact, let's see, two dot. This is the Dell lights out management for just people who are curious. I like the Dell one too. This is that Dell R740. I like the storage page, looks really cool. It shows you which drives are in there, so you can do this. I like the effect this gives too. This is the one I just stuck one boot drive in here. Uh, I have plenty of room for more though. These are all SAS ports that I can use. They can be used with SATA drives, but I can throw SAS here, and then this row is NVMe. So I don't know what all is going in here, but it's still pretty cool. I like the lights out management on the Dells. I probably should do sometimes show the lights out management on the Lenovo's as well. I ran a copy of my production system in TrueNAS Electric Eel. Idle server loads at least 10 times less. Crazy. Oh, yeah. That is huge difference. Electric Eel is way less. Like, I might switch. I've had so few problems with the systems I switched. I might go ahead and move my production systems all over to it because I like the cost. I like the CPU cycle saving, which is also a cost savings of less heat, less power. Don't need IPMI. If you can access the machine, I wanted to do it, but decided not to spend the money on IPMI card. Yeah, like I said, it's one of those. You can also get. I have the Bly KVM. Let's see what is the? I forgot the IP address of it. I did a review of this before, and it's kind of handy when you're setting something up to get one of these other KVMs. Is if you get one of the other KVMs. And, this is just a handy way to be able to access things uh, through a KVM that is third party that can plug into any of these systems that you get. So it now becomes universal. So whatever I'm setting up, I'll just slap the Bly KVM on there. And I think this might be, someone told me this project's discontinued. It's basically just a hardware rendition for the Pi KVM with a specific set of hardware. I don't know if it's still available or not. It's an open source project. So even if it's discontinued and not getting updates, it does work and it runs Linux underneath, and you can kind of figure it out because it's running. It's all just pulling from the Pi KVM project to work. So that is another option if you don't have, or you don't want to spend the money on that. So, let's see here. Yeah, we use Dell servers running the iDRAC IPMI and being able to push firmware updates from there. Oh, yeah, yeah. For production stuff, it's really nice. Been using your old motherboard from a gaming server. Yeah, the gaming servers work pretty fine on there. And that, as I was showing, I still use the Bly KVM. I don't know the answer to this question. I was wondering if the Epic 64 core selling on eBay coming from China are legit. I really don't know. There's always a lot of sketchiness going on. I don't keep up with the industry enough to tell you what is or isn't sketchy. So I don't know. We don't really buy. So we buy from a company called Tech Supply Direct, but we do not buy from random vendors from China selling things at steep discounts. So I don't know how much I trust that. I there's a there's always a percentage of things that are just fraudulent seemingly going on. Um, So I'm always very skeptical on a lot of that stuff on there. Like I said, I don't really keep up with that. Occasionally, I'll see someone do a video about it. For a while there was a ton of really sketchy USB drives and sketchy memory cards being sold on there, like a ton of it. And Amazon was doing like nothing to stop it. There's a few YouTube videos that were pretty funny because the person tried reporting it and even that failed. It was a video from maybe a year or two ago. Basically, they sell you a USB or a memory card that is a greater size than the price point would suggest. So, like, hey, here's this 128 gig system, and what they're doing is messing with the firmware to let you think it has more storage than it does. Obviously, that doesn't go well because once you exceed its actual storage, so if they tell you it's got 128 gigs of storage, but it only has 32, it can write up to the 32, but once you get to the larger part of it, it doesn't work anymore and starts corrupting all the data. So yeah, there's, I generally I avoid them. If it looks too good to be true, it probably is. So there's definitely a lot of, buyer beware on all of that stuff. Yeah, if you find a good vendor that you have experience with, for us, because we have a relationship with them and we've spent a lot of money with them, the folks over at Tech Supply Direct, they're definitely the ones to go to for things that like I know are legit. Somewhere I probably have a picture, or at least I thought I did. Good at losing photos. No, not good at losing. I take too many photos, so they get lost in my head. Where is that other picture? I'll just share this one real quick. I mean, give you an idea just how many of them are in there. There's a lot. We have stacks of these, like all the Tech Supply Direct boxes. I think there's, let's see here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I think there's 10 because there's another box, or there's actually two more boxes. There's at least like 11 or 12. These are all R640s, I think, for one of our clients. So we buy these in quantities for projects, and we like Tech Supply Direct. They're great people. We get the proper rails and everything else with it. So, do you recommend any ZFMS module tweaks? Not really. The the defaults on ZFS generally work really well, and I wouldn't really recommend tweaking it too much because that's usually how people get themselves in trouble. So there's not the defaults work really well with ZFS because if there was better defaults, they would set them as the defaults. So the question usually needs more like, what are you trying to accomplish that you're trying to tweak? Maybe one day I'll use image. For all the business stuff, it's just way easier to use Google Photos. Personal stuff goes on my Synology, but Google Photos, because I take all the photos and, for example, if I go to this tab here, these are all social media photos that we have. So these are all things I share on social media. I share these with Matt, so they're easy for me to, like, this is an upcoming video I'm working on and some random photos I have of other things. So these are the reason I use it. It's just so much easier for me to grab photos while I'm on my phone, share them out really quick. That would be so much more work in something like image. That's why I don't use it. I think for personal photos, I like doing this, but these photos are literally like, I'm not worried about Google having my data. I'm trying to put this data on the internet in a fast way. So it's the opposite of privacy. I want these very public. So that's why, because people ask me about the privacy stuff with Google. I'm like, let's see. I dump all my stuff to YouTube. I dump all my stuff to a Google photo. And I said, my goal is to get this out to the public. So I'm not worried about them stealing it. Matter of fact, they're making it easier to share it with people. But that's my perspective for these photos. My personal photos are different. And that's where I've talked about using like Synology, because Synology works really well. Quick question. Would you say it's worth it to install apps and FreeNAS on its own NVMe into the main pool, or would that not really matter much? No, I don't think that matters much at all. I'll actually show you how I do it myself. And the reason I do it this way is because it's logical. The apps themselves, one, don't take up a ton of space. For compared to all my other data, the apps are really small. And all my apps right now are on my slower pools. So if you look, I have a pool called Rusty and a pool called Flashy. Uh, why put it on a fast pool at all? Like I put it on the slower pool because the apps just need to live there. Once they're in memory, they're not really reading very often at all. It's like they boot, they read, they're done. So like SyncThing, rsync, and MinIO, I put them on the slow pool, which is the Rusty pool. You can guess what kind of drives are in the Rusty pool. For what use case would you recommend Proxmox over Unraid? Well, Unraid is a little more leaning towards a NAS system, and Proxmox is more exclusively a virtualization system. Doesn't mean someone has not hacked away and made Proxmox do things it wasn't designed for. I know people who are using Proxmox for NAS. Like it's Debian underneath. You can do it, but it's not a NAS system out of the box. It's something that can be converted into, but then you're just managing from the command line. So it doesn't make a lot of sense to me. So Unraid, more of a NAS system, but it does have the ability to run Docker. I don't know if there's any virtualization on RAID. I don't use it. But Proxmox is focused on virtualization. Not to my knowledge. There's not. I don't think that now. Maybe there's a way to do it that I'm not aware of. So I'll leave it as Tom is not aware of a way to emulate ARM on that. Doesn't mean there's not a way. But I don't know. How did it go with your Arista switches? They're still setting them up. I think they're doing it all in Ansible. One of our other people is writing. There's several of them to set up and deploy, and we're building at the client's request. I think I have to look at this part of the project. It's not the part of the project I'm doing. The Arista switches will be set up with an automation script, and it'll be done in Ansible. Where I'll pull those up. Those are here. There they are. Yes, they're definitely Rusty drives. Been wondering if it was worth it to have the apps installed on their own drive, but couldn't find much on that. Much appreciated. Yeah, I can't see a good reason for it. Let the chat war begin. It's not much of a war. And the reason why, I think Techno Tim did a video on this. Unraid's just not going to perform as well as TrueNAS. TrueNAS has full-blown ZFS. I know there's some way to make Unraid work with ZFS. I've been told. I don't really have an interest in it. It plays very second fiddle to TrueNAS in my head. Like, it's not that it's a terrible product. It just leans more towards home users versus when you look at some of these larger systems we're building, like this here, I'm not putting Unraid on this for a customer. This is a petabyte of storage for one of our clients running TrueNAS. Like, I know how well TrueNAS works in enterprise storage spaces, and I don't plan on changing that. For home users, like I said, if you like it, you're going, hey man, I just really think Unraid's great and it suits my use case. Go for it. Awesome. Why people think they need to automate stuff and Ansible is behind me unless you're dealing with hundreds of switches. We are dealing with lots of things. We're going to be building network automation for, I mean, to give you an idea, if I'm not mistaken, those Arista switches are about $20,000 a piece, and the company bought, I think we have 4 or 5 of them there, but there's more to their network than that. So yes, and if that doesn't hint you as to the scale that the company is, by the way, this is also this company's. They have numerous ones of these storage servers. So yeah, I get it completely. In terms of, if you're doing one switch, you're doing it for learning. If you're doing it at the scale we're doing it, you're doing it because you need to build automation around things. I have no idea. No one, when things are racked into data centers, no one asks how much power they draw. I mean, there is a general question of how much power they draw, but it's whatever's on their spec sheet. There's not like a lot of testing that will probably be done around that. What's the easiest way to have a site to site between UDM Pro and pfSense? I don't know. Because the UDMs still don't have WireGuard for site to site yet. So until they get that, WireGuard will be my answer. I think OpenVPN is probably the runner up. So that would probably, I think you can do a site to site with OpenVPN. We have 0 UniFi firewalls in production. And the weak point of the UniFi firewalls still is their VPNs. And it's just one of those challenges. Like, I like where they're going. I love all the enhancements. I think they've made a substantial gain, but I had a VPN problem the other day with one, and it's a head scratcher to solve because they didn't give us any good tooling. They didn't give us just general logs. So I SSH'd in going, fine, it's not in the UI. I can SSH in and get the logs, right? Right? No, you can't. Instead, they've decided that var log OpenVPN can exist, but it doesn't stick anything in there. So troubleshooting them just gets harder. And why they make it harder and why they don't just dump things to syslog in a consistent way or expose it in the UI is beyond me. No, it's not beyond me. It's just something they didn't think about doing. And it's taking them a long time to start getting things rational, but I still don't think they have the most rational firewall interface for rules. But they're getting there. I think the rule sets are just a little bit more confusing. I don't know. ZFS storage has been referred to as the billion-dollar file system because of the amount of engineering in it. It's just such a well-engineered system that your data can be trusted on. That's the biggest reason that makes ZFS special is that there's an absolute amazing amount of engineering to build a very, very robust, reliable file system. Yep. Steve Gibson did a great job of reporting on the all the flaws in there. And he made a tool to validate the reported capacity too. So yes, Steve Gibson with grc.com. So at some point, Unraid is getting the ZFS implementation. Cool. But now we have another question, and TrueNAS has been doing years and years and years of ZFS. Matter of fact, they're the upstream contributor to the open source ZFS a lot. They've sponsored, as it's referred to, many ZFS projects. They have developers on there. So which one do you go with? The company that on their next version is getting around to ZFS, or the company that wrote lots of functionality into ZFS and has been doing it for years, which is one of the reasons that I'm still sticking with TrueNAS. And it's not that I have anything against trying new things. I'm actually someone who really likes trying new things. The problem is I have to have a compelling reason to switch. And when you have a thing that works great, and by the way, there's a couple different blockers here for Unraid. First, they're getting into ZFS eventually. Second, it's a closed source project versus an open source project. So my pain points with TrueNAS aren't, oh my gosh, TrueNAS has become so expensive, I must look at another system because it's free. And the pain point with Unraid is they're getting into something, so I don't know if I trust their integrity of the way they're doing it. And it's also a paid product that's closed source. So Unraid doesn't. There's nothing about it that makes me go, yes, that's what I need in my lab because it doesn't fill a gap that I have with TrueNAS. Yeah, you could do IPsec for UniFi to pfSense as well. It works. What do I recommend? I still really like the UniFi access points. I still think they make just a really good product on there, and it's hard to recommend any of the other ones. Like, the Omada stuff's okay, but it's kind of buggy. They're slower on security updates, and it barely saves you money from the UniFi ecosystem. I just think UniFi's hit this really nice sweet spot with pricing and quality of their stuff. So. Oh yeah, the UniFi firewall is very lacking from a commercial perspective for sure. Well, Edge Router lets you tail the logs, but I would consider the Edge routers pretty much. And do they even they even sell the Edge Router series anymore? I haven't even looked in a long time. So you can get the yeah, I'm gonna say that the Edge routers are what do they have here? Edge router 6 PoE? Okay, so they still sell some of them. They get no fanfare. I mean, they're still supporting them, I guess. So that's cool, but they're not the exciting products for them. I don't know. I was never into these. I never cared for them much. Well, I take that back. Years and years ago when they first came out, I thought they were kind of novel, but it quickly wore off. I found how limited they were, and anything advanced constantly had to be done from the command line. I don't know if that's still true. It was just tedious to work with them. So according to Unraid ZFS support is bad. I like I said, I just I don't have I'm hoping they do well and it's a popular product. I'm not dogging on it. There's just not. I have so many other things on my list that Unraid is not on it. That's basically like I'm constantly behind on everything I want to get done and everything I'd like to share, and Unraid doesn't really add. Yeah, so. So across the pond, Amada is about 30% cheaper. Yeah, that's where I don't know the answer is how that works once you go to the international markets. Um, and maybe that cost savings becomes worth it. Ah, I have a rant about them. By the way, my rant includes not where are some of these? But I've been testing Alta Lab stuff for a little while. So I'm familiar with their stuff, but yeah, it looks pretty and whatnot. But there's something I think this is dumb. And I've absolutely told them. So if we look at their products, I think the idea that they want to charge you, like, so they sell this device here so you can have local setup on here. So this is your what would the equivalent of a cloud key. Um, but I don't really get it. Like it's confusing to me. This right here, and I've exactly told them this. So if you want to download their controller software, or, and this also includes the way you set up their device, it all registers with them. You get, if you buy the hardware, essentially the license is included. If you want to self-host, you can always use their cloud. But I think I'm speaking to, there's like 200 people online right now in this live stream, and I bet almost zero of them would like something that ties to some vendor's cloud with no local interface. That is just a recipe for problems, because if the vendor has a problem, they have an outage or whatever that might be, you're screwed. If the vendor goes out of business, you're screwed. The product becomes a pumpkin at midnight, and I just don't like that. But for you to charge for your controller doesn't make any sense because it only works with your hardware. So why would you charge for your controller software when Ubiquiti gives it away for free? So when I'm running down the features list, I can't figure out why I would choose them over Ubiquiti. They've not done the minimum you need to do to compete with Ubiquiti is copy what they did. That's the minimum. Omada did that exactly. Omada says we're going to copy it and make it cheaper. Okay. I would say copy, make it better. That's where I try to go with a product. I look for, hey, there's this product, but I'll pay more for the better version of the product. Awesome. But instead, Omada is like, well, we're going to, or not Omada, Alta is like, we're going to charge for the controller. Okay. Yeah. So that's my rant on Alta. TP-Link is affordable there in Germany. Okay, cool. Everybody likes it when their Meraki cloud disappears. Yeah. I will never buy a critical infrastructure product that doesn't offer locally managed option. No way I would want to buy a product that I need to host externally and for Cloud Elite. Unfortunately, in Meraki is absolutely hugely popular. I know because we sell a ton of Meraki. That's just how Meraki works. Like it's dependent on their cloud. End of story. No local management. I mean, it is what it is. And yes, it's used a lot in the enterprise. Yes, there's definitely a lot of people that don't like this. And I agree. It's the companies are really pushing hard for it. As a matter of fact, that's been Ubiquiti's edge is the fact that they're going, hey, here's a free controller that doesn't even require registration to work. And I think that gets people excited. And they're awesome. But yeah. Now, one thing I'll say for most devices, I don't know if this is 100% with Aruba, but Aruba offers local management on a lot of their devices. So you can get their Aruba Instant On and manage it from the cloud, but you can also locally manage a lot of those devices. I think a few of them do require cloud, but I don't know if all of them do. I'm not a big fan of the Instant On dashboard. It doesn't look great. I think the Alta dashboard, let me bring it back up. I don't think the Alta dashboard is bad at all. I think they have a nice dashboard. It looks good. There is a weirdness to it, and so this is an unusual problem. The VLANs and some of the things don't show up properly unless you're in Firefox. There is some weird bugginess that they seem to have with Google Chrome. I don't know why. They never tried to take the local controller away. I've heard people say that. I've been working with Ubiquiti for like 10 years, and I've not known any time that the local controller wasn't available. So while I hear people saying that, and actually I might do a video on, how the UniFi ecosystem works, because that has been a confusion where people tell me, oh no, you have to register with their cloud. I'm like, no, you don't. I mean, briefly, some of their firewalls or devices with the built-in UniFi controller did require cloud registration. I think that was about a year. So out of the 10 years I've worked on them, 1 year roughly, they had, if you bought their devices with the controller built in, it would ask for registration. And it was only like the UDM devices that did. I think maybe the Cloud Key did as well. But you've always been able to download the controller itself, always. And that has not changed. And the controller does not require registration. Nope, I have 0 Alta Labs deployments in production. I have no opinion on that. And as I just said, in 10 years, I can't name any time the UniFi controller was not available to run as a I mean, I run it inside a VM, but it'll run on hardware. It's basically they've had a Debian and Windows. I think they still have a Mac installer, but I know they've had a Debian and Windows installer for the entirety of my usage of UniFi. I don't know any time where they didn't. I know it's not typical PF Sensor UniFi, but I got a 40 gate 120G for the home lab, courtesy of work. Pretty nice. Yeah, the 40 gates have some popularity. I think it's they're offering cloud integration. They default to it because it is easier. And I, this is the problem they had with letting people build their own NVRs. People do a terrible, terrible job of it. Um, it is It is kind of a double-edged sword because when you start letting people build their own things, they do, and it sounds great until you realize how bad they are at maintaining it. There's an unprecedented number of log4j things still exposed because people don't update or maintain things. Most of the problems on the internet, all the botnets floating around on the internet, are because people don't update and maintain things. So I get why they kind of go, please, because you look at the CISA Kev list going, hey, this is exploited. But then you really look at the CISA Kev list, you're like, wait a minute, the CISA Kev list has got stuff from 2023 on there. I feel like we're in September of 2024. And I did check the date and confirm we're in September of 2024. And we're actively watching exploits from a year, 2 years ago be at the top of the list because no one's patched things. So I like that UniFi currently sets it all by default out of the box to auto update. Thank you, because people will not auto update. Oh, 40 VPN is definitely high on that list. They need to refactor that code. It's a disaster. I want to migrate to PFSense, set up all the rules again. Yeah. I don't know of any project that'll migrate to Sophos XG back up to that. Yeah, they do not. I mean, like I said, I don't think there's any time Ubiquity knows part of their value proposition they offer is the fact that they aren't trying to push all the they're not trying to push you to the cloud. They offer a cloud option, but it's not implicitly required. Now, they had some dumb they were doing for a while. I really ranted before because their VPN didn't work unless you connected to the cloud for no reason. I was like, this is stupid. And they got rid of that stupid. Their firewalls have been the one spot where they keep doing dumb things. So it's taken them a long time to come all the way around to making their firewall better. And they're getting there. It's also great. So, yes, I do have a PF Sense HA video. I highly, you better be really good at setting things up. This is one of those things. Could I build a hardware mixed with a VM? It would be such a rigged up, terrible way to do it where you set up HA to fail over to that. I would not do it. It's not that you can't, it's that you shouldn't. Anytime you're setting up proper HA, and it's not just a PF Sense thing, this goes for actually a lot of devices that support HA. Don't mix and match hardware or hardware in virtualized systems. You're going to have unpredictable amounts of bugs. So I don't recommend doing it that way. Doesn't mean you can't. It's just you shouldn't. It's a fun science experiment to learn things, but it's not a good idea. This is one of the problems. People start with these bad ideas occasionally, and if you don't really have the mindset that you want to do a bad idea just for science, it ends up in production, and then they end up calling us for consulting to try to solve crazy problems, often under duress, often after they've lost data. I've had people set up TrueNAS in the unexpected ways and then go, wow, I've lost this much data. Can you help me recover it? I'm like, no, the terrible idea you had that you kept adding until you had 100 terabytes of data has now fallen over because you had such a terrible idea for setting this up. And I try to do everything I can to encourage people to experiment, but never let experiments be production. What does a typical client infrastructure look like? Oh, what does the typical client infrastructure look like from a unified Dream Machine out perspective, or do you trust UniFi as the external device? If you want to use, I don't have a security problem with UniFi firewalls. I have a bad logging in their OpenVPN problem, like if you have troubleshooting to do. I don't think there's any security issues with the UniFi firewalls. So they look fine. If you want to put them at the edge of their network, I don't think that's a problem. I just don't think they make the firewalls that are as good as they could be. The good news is I think UniFi is getting there. They're moving forward. They're doing things that are proper to get to a better position on their firewalls. It just takes a long time because it's not about money. It's about vision and finding people that can follow through with the vision. There's plenty of companies with lots of money not doing great firewalls because they don't have a good roadmap. And putting that roadmap together is one step, and then finding the people to execute on that roadmap, that's where things get really hard. If you were to say, Tom, I'm going to give you $10 million, build the perfect firewall, I'd say, give me 50 million and maybe. It's just, and even then, it would be a full-time job to do so. It's no small undertaking. Been considering PF Sense once or 40 gates. Well, here's the problem. PF Sense lacks a DPI system. So if you rely on any of the deep packet inspection features and blocking features, no, it won't work. I just tell people that up front when they want to compare PF Sense to other commercial options or even UniFi. UniFi's DPI works pretty good, and it is non-existent in PF Sense. So when I showed those stack of firewalls earlier, that client has zero need for deep packet inspection and blocking and control. That's just not something that's going to be used. These are going to be plugged into a data center sitting in front of a bunch of hardware. So because they don't need the DPI system, it's irrelevant to them. So I don't know your use case to say whether or not that's matters to you. My HL15 is coming this week. What OS do you recommend for Plex storage, dual servers, doing the bring your own motherboard and hardware option? Um, I like virtualizing things with XCP-ng. I think it's pretty cool, but I don't know if you like that. Maybe you like Proxmox better, and Proxmox is not a bad choice on there. Or bare metal, load Linux on there and just build everything from hand yourself. It really kind of depends on where you're trying to land. In the most basic features, I like load TrueNAS on there, and you can run a few things in there. Maybe that's enough because it's only one system. Like TrueNAS will do virtualization, and it doesn't have very many advanced features, but do you need them? And that's always what it comes down to. Like you may just need the apps and you don't even need virtualization. So you load TrueNAS on there and load all your apps and you're like, hey, wait, this works great. And I might do once the electric eel is released. I've had a few people comment that it works well. They loaded Dockage on it to manage Docker. And if everything you want can live in Docker, awesome. TrueNAS manages storage very well. Dockage can do a good job of managing Docker, or if you just get good at the command line for managing Docker, it's, you can put that together and it works well too. So there's a lot of options on there. My thoughts on OpenSense, they're always dragging their feet on security. They're always trailing behind the PF Sense. And even though they have a more updated UI, the security thing is a sticking point to me. And so I've always just gone with PF Sense. I don't have any compelling reason because a better UI is one, it's kind of subjective. Two, I know the PF Sense UI. So it's, if your choices are, I've never used a firewall before, which one's easier? Yeah, I'm going to say they've made the search a little bit nicer in OpenSense, but when it comes to security and all the functionality, an example was they don't use the same gateway groups. So when you're doing like IPsec failover, that's not something you can do in the same way in OpenSense because it doesn't have the same failover group option. So I stay with PFSense. Oh, tons of people want to do DPI. They want to do blocking of applications, blocking of this. People love blocking at the firewall. It is a common request. we solve that problem by blocking it on the endpoint. And the reason we do it that way is from a business standpoint, the endpoints are very, very frequently employees with laptops. And in case you hadn't heard, for the last 4 years, it's really popular for people not to work in the office anymore. So at least it is here in the United States. Therefore, that laptop may or may not be behind the firewall that does the blocking. So doing the blocking on the device itself and managing it that way means I don't have to worry about the firewall. So we use application level blocking, which gives me more visibility anyways. I don't have to deal with certificates. Yeah, NTOP NG gives you data, but it doesn't give you filtering. We use Zoros. I've done a video on it. You can find it on my channel, Zorus. I'll spell it out and put it on the screen. But there's a video on it. Yeah, filtering is the definite request. Like that's where people ask questions the most on it. And it's just not in pfSense. So for us to use pfSense for someone is usually, and like I said, we have a ton of endpoint tools. I will be doing an updated video on that. I have an older one, but it's going to be the client defense matrix. And it's all the tooling we use to actually do what we do. It's definitely a lot of tooling, but it's kind of necessary in the modern world we live in, I guess is the easiest way to say it for how we manage clients. I mean, we manage several thousand computers. So how do you got to remember anything we do is managing it's multiplied times thousands. that's the number you have to remember when we're doing this. It's not like 10 computers. It's not 100 computers. It's a lot more than that. So we always have to think about things from a manageability standpoint of how do we have all the techs manage it at scale. And when those people, it's also spread across like, I think we have like 50 plus companies that we're doing IT for. So it's not just the volume of computers, it's also policies on a 50 plus company basis. I think there's like 62 companies. I'll have to ask. I'm not involved in certain aspects that are, I think about the technical things, but the stats of how the companies run, like I can log into our system and see all the contracts, but I don't. It's that is a Jason Slagle problem. He is a president of CNWR. He knows that, and we talk about that stuff from time to time. You made a video on the UniFi hardware. How often would you preventively replace the switch or data scenario to avoid failure? 5 to 7 years. That's the biggest thing. Hey, look, my wife joined because she says we're supposed to leave. Me and my wife are going somewhere. So I'll wind this down in a few minutes because she's right. I just looked at the time. Oh, I like it. There's a lot of questions that people have. You mean video and reliability unified, but replacing it. Like I said, 5 to 7 years. We try to, when possible. I mean, obviously, end of life is the biggest driver. So if something's end of life, it's really about like making sure that we can patch things. If we know the date is going to be this, like 2025 September, whatever that number is, we got to make sure we replace the system by then. So that's definitely a there. Question up here. We're using Sentinel-1 and Huntress for endpoint detection. I think that's the question you're asking right there. Tom talks. Talks Tom. Well, I can always do a night live stream for the audience that, so like, I know I've got the European market because it's morning here. I'm in Eastern Standard Time in Detroit. So it's morning here now. And so I probably got the European crowd, but if I did a night stream, I'd have the California and West Coast crowd of people. So yeah, But I'll talk there. If there is a page about some of the security stuff we offer, it's in my forums. If you search around, I've talked about the tooling we use for things. Yeah, if you're using SNI, looking at SNI, server name indicator, that's actually all that is available. It doesn't give you much else than that because you need the SNI. And if we ever move to, and a Cloudflare is pushing this encrypted SNI, it's going to break tons of DPI systems, and you're going to only be able to do it with a certificate. That's why we focus on the endpoint solution because it just works better. Okay, so I actually have people that are early risers here. Interesting. What did you send? Oh, time. Yep. So, all right, I'm going to wind this down. I will very quickly do some shameless plugging. Well, I don't know about shameless, but shop.lawrencesystems.com. Check out all of our shirts and all that fun stuff. We have a newsletter you can find at lawrencesystems.com. And Matt makes all these cool little graphics that I can switch in and out. So big thanks to Matt Fox. He's the magic man behind the scenes. he's awake early too. He realized he just didn't have his camera on. So, or he didn't switch to it, but Matt is the magic man I hired earlier this year. That's been helping out with all the fun stuff here. Yeah, never shameless. Well, my wife knows I'm shameless. But yeah, join the forums, join all the places. Absolutely. There's plenty of ways to interact with me. I do spend a ton of time in my forums.lawrencesystems.com. And yeah, that is hey, look, we even had a banner where if you go to the forums, it suggests that you do the newsletter. We've installed some of our own little banners on there for people. But yeah, I spend a ton of time in here. It's a great way if you want to engage with me on a lot of questions and everything else. So I'll leave you all with that. So those are ways you can contact me. Find me on the socials at lawrencesystems.com. And I'll say this one more time because I know there's a lot of people here. If you go to lawrencesystems.com and you go over to the things we love and you choose the creators we love, there's a lot of other people on here, YouTube channels and podcasts that I like, that you can absolutely, if you want just more content from good people, I got a list of good people to get content from. So while I'm busy doing stuff, feel free to enjoy any of their content as well. All right. Thanks, everyone. And see you next time.